Welcome back to the Pit Check. As mentioned before, we've seen a massive uptick in EPs and demos over the past year, and this week is like the pinnacle of that. We've got 9 new EPs to talk about today. 9! And that's in addition to the 4 full-length albums that we're also going to talk about today. So today we've got a ton of different death metal in all different shapes and sizes, but for reasons I will explain later, I'm being extra nice this episode. So today we're visiting not only the hard corner, but also the metal corner and the death corner. This is a turducken of an episode, so I'm just gonna get right into it. These are my recommendations and reviews for the best new albums that came out this week. Minneapolis Digressive Death. The Minnesota-based old-school death metal band Nothingness has released their 3rd studio album, Godslaughter. This is some really dark and nasty and like eerie, dissonant death metal. It's got this really doomy, menacing atmosphere that I really fuck with. I also really like how subtly this band shows off their sheer technicality. It's got this classic, nostalgic yet satisfying sound, very gritty and DIY, but the riffs and rhythms are so much more creative and sharp and precise than you would expect from this more like caveman death metal sound. I'm super loving this return to the old school brutality. There's influences in here everywhere from like Cannibal Corpse to Nightmare to Gorguts to Carcass to Incinerated, while having their own unique flavor of punishment, which allows them to stand on their own instead of in the shadow of these legendary bands. They managed to perfectly balance being pure aggression and violence with extremely impressive song structures and writing skills, both in their more abrasive melodies and in their lyricism. This is a tight, punchy, and punishing album that beat me absolutely senseless. Sacktown Slamdown. The Sacramento, California-based slamming brutal death metal band Split the Fuck Open has released their debut album, Necromorphic Hunger. Dude, this thing is nastier than Lindsey Graham's Ladybugs. It's just IQ-dropping, slamming, guttural punishment. This album is the beautiful serenade of a slaughterhouse. The guitars are crunchy and low-tuned and have this like overwhelming wall of noise vibe, and then the drummer is blasting and has this high crank snare drum that cuts right through the mix, and then it just has the darkest frog mutant vocals. Plus, this thing is loaded with just the most insane features. We've got vocals from Cephaloptropsy, Nauseating, Bolt Cutter, and Squelching. So it's just a cacophony of demons on this album, like it's goddamn Event Horizon.
We're leaving.
Highly recommended if you need some brutal death metal from the depths of hell. Pussy poppin', boner choppin', Deathgrind. The off-the-rails death metal crossover band Retain Surgical Instrument, or RSI, has released their debut album, Constantly Dripping OOZE. I think this band takes self-awareness and don't take this shit too seriously, to a new high, or I guess a new low. Either way, this thing is swimming in pig shit and severed dicks, and I'm right there snorkeling next to them. I will say though, as silly and fun as this album is, it also rips so fucking hard. With how technical and grinding this album is, I'm surprised it's only one guitarist. Dude must have an extra couple fingers, or a tentacle. And I really like how fuzzy and grimy this bass tone is while he's just fucking shredding. And then there's that goddamn aluminum bat against a steel keg for a snare drum that is just the perfect cherry on top. It's also really sick that this isn't just some like one-note meme band. The lyrics and aesthetics might lead you to believe that every song is gonna like sound the exact same, or it's just gonna be a gimmick, but I was really surprised how much variety and versatility that RSI shows on this album. They can obviously shred, but the way they can also hit these like slam and brutal death metal gutturals and even beat down half times are so fucking vile. And vocalist Vic Gregg shows off a ton of talent and range with the pig squeals and the harsh pummeling growls that perfectly suit the vibe of each passage, and somehow has this like tongue-in-cheek inflection to some of the lines, like, now you're getting it. German Emoviolence. The Dortmund-based emo-core crossover band Moral Bombing have released their latest album, Chrysopoeia. Not to be hyperbolic, but I think I found my new favorite band. This is such a fresh, interesting take on the emo-violence and hardcore-influenced screamo sound that is so just emotionally powerful and poetic while being just vicious as hell and unafraid to get into a bare-knuckle street fight. Oh shit, the skinny kid got hands! Holy shit. I am not kidding when I say this is one of the most fascinating releases of 2026, period. This band has such a unique and perfectly realized sound that is immediately recognizable. You can pick this band out of a lineup without any hesitation. Between the gorgeous melodies and atmosphere to the biting, raw, and desperate vocals, to the ominous black metal influences, to these hardcore two-stepping and throwback metalcore chugging breakdowns, to some like technical and abrasive grind influence, and somehow, masterfully, they make it all work as one cohesive concoction rather than a disjointed mess or like strung together pieces. This is a beautifully aggressive and uncompromising album that I genuinely can't get enough of. It's 12 songs long, and somehow each one just gets better and better. The German metal and hardcore scene has been unbelievable this year, so I think I'm just gonna have to, bite the bullet and just take my ass over there and start catching some shows. And so this album actually officially releases on August 13th, but for reasons I'm literally about to explain, I won't be able to cover it then. And I really, really did not want you guys to miss this one, so I had to include it early. There's an EP that's available right now that you can stream, but the full album drops next week, officially. The band sent it to me early, and it's just so fucking good. I just couldn't wait the 2 weeks to talk about it. So, like I alluded to earlier, I am being super nice this week and covering like 14 different releases on this episode. So if it comes out on Friday instead of Thursday, I'm really sorry. It's a big episode. But my reason for this is that I'm actually not going to have an episode at all next week. As some of you know, I'm also a freelance filmmaker and photographer, and semi-unfortunately, but also fortunately, I'm booked out the ass for the rest of this week. So trying to balance both like those shoots and all of the research and writing and filming and editing that goes into this show every week, it wasn't gonna happen. I'm only one person and I literally do all this myself. No team, no AI, just my dumb ass. So if you would like to support the channel in some way, whether that's just liking the video, subscribing, sending it to your friends, commenting about which albums this week tickled your fancy, or even some of you glorious philanthropist psychopaths who have actually donated to the channel, God, I love you so much. That's incredibly kind of you. Like, thank you. Literally anything you do, no matter how big or how small, all of it would super help out the channel and mean the world to me. It would be really cool one day to stop accepting gigs and start doing this full time. And ideally, I'd love to start doing more than just these, review roundups. Maybe like deep dives into long-standing bands' full discographies, or mini documentaries, or even just more philosophical conversations about the current musical zeitgeist. I don't know. But I just feel like there is a lot more that I want to do, and I feel like there's a lot more that could be done in this space, but being tied down to my real job to pay my very real bills is always going to be a limiting factor. So again, thank you all so much for supporting this channel in any way you have, and I'm sorry for being long-winded, but again, no episode next week because your boy's got to work. Love you guys. Thank you so much. Back to the show. For our first corner today, you're going to need some size 0 girl pants, a studded belt, and a hair straightener, because for this installment of the Metal Corner, we're going back to 2006. Here are 3 Myspace metalcore bands that'll make Tom proud. First up, we've got the UK metalcore band Long Goodbye with their latest EP, A Whispered Promise of Failure. I was already a huge fan of Long Goodbye's debut album last year, but holy shit, this is a huge step up from just about every angle. The riffs are even more unhinged and screeching and nostalgic, while being refreshingly elevated from some of the other throwback revival core bands. The breakdowns hit even harder and have these really sick low-tuned chugs and blast beats and panic chords, really channeling that more abrasive and brutally heavy side of the metalcore spectrum. Fantastic release. Highly recommended. Next up, we've got the Las Vegas metalcore band Sometime Tomorrow with their debut EP, Weak with Sorrow. If you love that hyper riffy, technical, and shredding old school metalcore, this is the band for you. If you're a fan of bands like As Blood Runs Black, or Black Dahlia, or The Crimson Armada, or even that Count Your Blessings era of Bring Me the Horizon, you're gonna find a lot to love here. They've got these perfectly ear-chewing, raspy growls and chuggy 16th note breakdowns with dissonant melodies, and just so much energy. And finally, we've got the Florida-based knife mosh metalcore band Playing with Knives, fair enough, and their latest EP, The Price We Pay. Time and passes by, I was too late to see you one more time. This one has a lot more of the emo, post-hardcore influenced metalcore of the late 2000s, early 2010s. Really catchy melodies and tons of emotion and passion, really channeling that Warped Tour core vibe, or the Rise Records core. But while other bands on this list have a really rough around the edges and gritty sound, this one actually has a surprisingly clean and well-produced quality. The guitar work here is really interesting and melodic, and I like how kind of open and atmospheric they can get. Solid band all around. Still feels like war. And for the next venue we're visiting, let's check out the lovely and totally not moldy and possessed area of the house, the Death Corner. Here are 3 deathcore and slam bands that'll ruin your day. First up, we've got the slamming deathcore crossover band Disfiguring the Goddess with their latest album, Bloom. This album is wild, dude. Sometimes it's heavy as fuck slamming brutality that just puts a dumb grin on your face. And other times it's surprisingly serious and emotionally charged with this like melodic and atmospheric elements alongside the electronic samples and the chuggy guitar. But more often than not, it's a super fun and self-aware take on an attempt to level up the goofy meme slam into something more experimental and refined, and showing off a ton of versatility within the genre and big swings on where it can go from here. And honestly, I think it's extremely successful. Then we've got the New Jersey deathcore crossover band DeadVectors with their latest EP, Cave Slam. This is some self-described insanity core, and yeah, that tracks. Especially with how they just tune as low as possible and hit you in the face with this wall of sound as hard as humanly possible, as fast as humanly possible. But the real insanity here is how much fucking music they release. Holy shit. I'm not even kidding. They release like 100 songs worth of music every year. So if you dig their sound, you just found the one-piece equivalent of a deathcore band to dig into. And finally, we've got the progressive deathcore band Endera with their latest EP, A Blooming Doom. This one has a really technical and spacey, proggy, djenty influence, which is weaved into their more traditional metalcore, deathcore hybrid structure. The guitars on this EP are really fuzzy and chuggy and melodic, which perfectly mirror this unyielding and infinitely assaulting vocal barrage. There's even some cool synth lines and atmospheres that help give this band such a grandiose sound. And I really like how they can balance the emotion and the decapitations. Good stuff. And for our final corner, it's everyone's favorite, it's the OG, it's the hard corner. Here are 3 DIY hardcore bands that'll break your jaw. The Edmonton straight edge hardcore band Contain has put out their latest EP, Imitation of Progress. This has a really strong 90s hardcore and early metallic hardcore influence. I really like how rough around the edges and raw this EP sounds. And look, I know I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but I love the bass here. The bass tone is fucking nasty, and this dude has an infinite well of the sickest grooves you've ever heard. And it perfectly bounces off these like slow open chords from the guitars. Geez, dude, between the vocals and the precise and pummeling drummer and the nostalgic yet fresh riffs, everything on this EP comes together just right. Next up, the London hardcore band Agency has released their latest EP, Counterattack. This one has a much more like classic hardcore spine, but then it's infused with like 2 tons of rabies-ridden feral animals. This thing is straight up unhinged, and I love it. It has this really incredible blend of being knife sharp while also extremely gritty. The high end cuts right through the mix and your eardrums, while these guitars are non-stop shredding and finding really creative and interesting ways to add flourishes to their riffs literally every single time. No riff is ever basic. It is always elevated in some way, shape, or form. I was blown away by this one. And finally, the Pittsburgh metallic hardcore band By the Deed has put out their debut LP, The Doorway. This one has a really poetic yet face smashing sound. Now that's what I call slam poetry. Lyrically and emotionally, this thing hits hard. Their sound is influenced by bands like Turmoil, One King Down, Indecision, and Snapcase, but I also hear a lot of like Every Time I Die, especially when it comes to the more sprawling riffs and the tone and tenor of the screams, especially the more like legible talk scream moments. And this is technically like 2 EPs smashed together. It's 4 new songs and 4 remastered versions of their previous songs, making this one pretty solid 23-minute album. And here are all of the albums and EPs and everything else released this week. Lots of good stuff in here. I tried to cover as much of it as I could. Again, no episode next week, so I hope you guys save this one, screenshot here, or really dive into the albums that we talked about today. There's so much good stuff. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. I'm prepping for the shoot this week. And yeah, as always, if you have a band, if you've got an album coming out, if your friend's got an album coming out, or you just know of one that you want on my radar, comment down below, shoot me a DM on any of my social platforms, whatever works best for you. It is all good for me. Love you guys. I'm so tired. I'll catch you next week.